Hi everyone, welcome back to Baking with Matisse. Claire's dessert person videos that I've done have been getting a lot of views, and so I decided to test out another one of her recipes this week. And this week I'm going to be trying her brioche. I've never tried making brioche myself before because I've always thought of it as like a fancy bread you only get in the bakery or the grocery store, and it's too difficult for a home baker to make. I hope that Claire can guide me through making this bread. I'll be really excited if it turns out, so let's get right into it. To make Claire's brioche, I needed a quarter cup of whole milk, 1 teaspoon of active dry yeast, 4 cups of all-purpose flour, a quarter cup of sugar, 2 teaspoons of salt, 6 large eggs, and 2 sticks of unsalted room temperature butter cut into pieces. To start, I dissolved the yeast by whisking it with some more milk at around 105 degrees Fahrenheit, and then I let that sit for around 5 minutes until it was foamy. Next, in the bowl of a stand mixer fitted with the dough hook, I combined the flour, sugar, and salt. After making a well in the center of the dry ingredients, I added the eggs and yeast mixture and turned the mixer on low speed until a shaggy dough started to form. I increased the speed to medium and continued to mix for 8 to 10 minutes until the dough was cleanly pulling away from the sides of the bowl and it was very soft and supple. Then, with the mixer still going, I added the butter one piece at a time, allowing each piece to fully incorporate it before adding the next. Once the butter had been fully incorporated and the dough was smooth, I floured it slightly and placed it into a large bowl covered in plastic. Then it needed to rise for 1 to 1.5 hours until it had doubled in size. This first portion of the recipe is good to be done the day before you want to make the brioche, because next it has to rest in the fridge for at least 8 and up to 24 hours. The next day, I divided the dough in half because this is enough to make 2 loaves of brioche. With 1/2 at a time, I formed it into a rectangle and rolled it into a log before placing it into my lined and buttered loaf pan. I covered the loaf pan with a damp towel and let it sit in a warm place for 1 to 2 hours until it filled up the pan. I brushed it with a beaten egg before baking for 30 to 35 minutes until the top was a deep golden brown. I made sure to let it cool before removing from the pan and then slicing. Alright, so I have a piece of the brioche here that I lightly toasted. And let me say, when I was toasting it, it was just oozing butter. That's how much butter there is in this. So, let's give this a taste then. It's really good. Brioche itself isn't a typical bread that you use for everyday purposes. It's kind of a bit sweeter and you can really taste all that butter that's in there. I do think it's a very nice soft loaf of bread. One of the problems I have with it is that it didn't actually rise that much. I think it has so little yeast, it only has 1 teaspoon in it. It barely even rose at all in an hour. It also could be the temperature that I'm in right now. It's the middle of winter and it's below 0 outside today, so that also could be making the difference in the rise time. If you wanted to get this done quicker, I would recommend using a little more yeast than she does, because I let it rise for 2 hours and it hadn't even doubled in size yet. It had grown bigger, but it hadn't doubled yet. At that point though, I just wanted to get it in the oven, so I threw it in there. I think the fact that I didn't let it completely fill up the pan before putting it in the oven might have made it break a little bit on the top once it started to bake. Overall, it's pretty similar to brioches that I've had before, which I consider a plus. Is it worth all the time it takes to make it? I'm not sure. It depends on what you're going for. If you're just using it for something that's not super important, I would say you don't need to go through the whole process of making it yourself. Because to me, it's not a ton better than what you can find at a local bakery. Don't get me wrong, the flavor of the butter of this is superb, but it was a lot of work to do and you have to be planning ahead to make it the day before you want to actually serve it. So that can affect your choices. Overall, I'd probably give this a 7 out of 10. It tastes great and it's very similar to brioche I've had before, but I'm not sure if it's worth all the trouble and time it takes to make. And also, I had trouble with mine getting it to rise with the amount of yeast and the amount of time she suggested. Well, thank you guys so much for watching this week's video. If you enjoy videos like this one, please hit that like button and subscribe for more. Don't forget to keep leaving your suggestions in the comments down below, and I'll see you all in the next video.